Pa pada ma pa ga ma pa pada ma pa ma da da sa ri sa ma ga ri sa. Dear ones, why am I starting with classical music for today's episode? Any guesses? 3, 2, 1. Because the topic for today is classical financial math. You know what that is? Compounding and discounting. Commerce study and our commercial lives are never complete without compound interest. Compounding refers to the future value of an amount invested today. A parallel concept is called discounting. Discounting refers to finding out the present value of future cash flows. Both these are vital for any financial decision or calculation. In this video, let us look at some practical scenarios in which we compound or discount cash flows. But before that, whether it is the future value or present value, the core concept is time value of money. It means what is the value of money over time? So the idea is it's not just that the amount matters, but also when you get it that matters. And of course, at some expected interest rate. This idea is called time value of money. So moving to the first practical case, future value of a fixed deposit. So what will be the future value of this one-time investment that we usually do in banks? See, we all know FDs are a safe investment option. How is the interest on a fixed deposit calculated? If the FD time period is 6 months or less, then the interest that we earn from the banks, okay, it's just simple interest. But if the time period is more than 6 months, then compounding of interest is done. For the magic of compounding to work, you have to opt for reinvestment of the FD interest. That way, you earn interest on interest. But if you choose for monthly payouts or quarterly payouts, then no compounding happens. So when you reinvest the interest on your FD, banks do the compounding, usually at quarterly intervals. Let's just look at an example. Let's say the amount invested is rupees 10,000. This is abbreviated as P, which means principal. And then there is the rate of interest per annum which the banks pay, that is 6%, that is abbreviated as R. The tenure of this fixed deposit is 5 years, which stands for T. Now the periodicity of compounding of this interest is quarterly. That is, the banks compound this interest 4 times per year. This 4 times per year, it is abbreviated as N. So now we have all the details that is needed to find the future value of rupees 10,000 after 5 years at 6% per annum. Now look at the formula that F future value is equal to the P principal, and then there is this compounding factor. Just look at it closely, maybe write it down once, and then we are, easily you can do this. And let me tell you, see, there are online calculators today for all of these calculations. But as students or even as professionals, it's good to know all this. Like, how do we actually do it? What's there in our books makes a lot of sense. So P into 1 plus the rate of interest to the power of T. Okay, to the power of T. But if you see here, the rate of interest is divided by N, and the T, the time period, is multiplied by N. You know why this happens? Because we are looking at the compounding. Now the compounding is happening quarterly, 4 times per year. So every quarter, what is the rate of interest? That is what we have to take the R percentage here. So R divided by 4 quarters. So divided by 4 is the rate of interest every time it is compounded. And to the power of T, The tenure is in years, it is 5 years, but we want it in quarters. So that is 5 into 4, which is 20 quarters. So when we substitute all the values in this formula, we get the future value as rupees 13,470. So 10,000 invested becomes 13,470 after 5 years. And the interest is 13,470 minus 10,000, which is equal to 3,470. So this was our first scenario. Okay, the future value of one lump sum amount that we invested, and if it gets compounded, what is the final value that we get is what we saw. Moving to another setting. This is called annuity. See, annuity is a sequence of periodical payments. They could be monthly payments like rent or loan EMIs, or even yearly payments like in the case of insurance premiums. They could also be periodical payments for investments like in the case of recurring deposits in banks. So, how do we calculate the future value of an annuity? In this practical scenario, we will look at the future value of a recurring deposit. Okay, let's look at an example. Let's say quarterly investment we are making is rupees 45,000. I have to mention here, in RDs, the investment is monthly. But for the sake of simplicity of our calculation, we are considering payment every quarter. But in any case, banks, they compound the interest only quarterly. And the rate of interest per annum is 6.5%. The tenure is 5 years. The periodicity of compounding is quarterly. So banks compound the interest every quarter. Now, because it's an annuity, the formula has some extensions from what we saw previously. So the future value is equal to the annuity into we can call this the annuity factor. So it is 1 plus r to the power of t divided by r. But again, remember, because the compounding is happening quarterly and not just once a year, the r has to be divided by the number of times it's compounded, r by n, so that the time period matches. It's not per annum, it is quarterly, as well as the t, the tenure should also be in quarters, so t into n. Got it? So when we substitute r values in this formula, we get the future value of the recurring deposit as rupees 10,53,000. All right. Now let us look at another case. Now this is in the case of EMIs. Now EMIs are also annuity payments, correct? So how do we calculate the monthly EMI amount on our loans? So the annuity formula, it has a slight variation when it comes to calculating EMIs in the case of loans. Let's take an example. Suppose you have taken a car loan for rupees 5 lakhs at 10% per annum interest for 10 years. Then how much should you pay as equated monthly installments? It would be rupees 5 lakhs divided by the annuity factor for these EMIs. So this might look, little humongous, the formula here with all this. But when we actually put pen on paper and write it down, it becomes very simple when we do it a couple of times. So the EMI is basically, this is how banks calculate it. Even if you substitute these values in an online calculator, you'll get the same value. So EMI is equal to rupees 5 lakhs divided by this whole exercise that's happening in the brackets. So it's again 1 plus r to the power of t minus 1 divided by r into 1 plus r to the power of t. I'm saying it like this because whenever the compounding is happening, more than once during the year, in the case of EMIs, the interest compounding happens monthly. That's why it's equated monthly installments. So the r has to be divided by n. Now we have to take it as understood. R has to be divided by n when the compounding happens many times during the year. And the tenure, if it's in years, we have to convert it into months in this case, not quarters, into months, because the compounding is happening monthly. So it will be 10 years into 12 months. So it will be 120 months. Got it? So when we substitute all these values in this formula, you know what's the monthly EMI that we have to pay on this car loan? Rupees 6,605. So this is how EMIs are calculated on our loans. So what have we gathered until now? We have seen how to calculate the future value of a lump sum amount through compound interest, the future value of an annuity, as well as EMI calculations. I'm going to touch base upon two more practical scenarios of compounding. Another one being compounded annual growth rate. In short, you would have heard or read about it as CAGR. See, as commerce students, you will study about CAGR somewhere in your syllabus, and you will also come across this term very much in the world of investing. CAGR is a business and investing specific term. Whenever growth takes place at a compounded rate over a period of time, then between the base year and the nth year, we need to know the average rate of return per annum. Let's quickly understand this with a situation. Suppose you invested rupees 10,000 in a mutual fund for 3 years. At the end of 3 years, the maturity amount is rupees 1,850. Now with these assumptions, how much has your investment earned? 85%, right? That's pretty good. But wait, don't decide on the investment yet. You will have to look at how much your investment has grown each year. In other words, you have to know the annualized average rate of growth. This average annual growth rate over 2 periods of time can be expressed, with respect to specific elements of business. It can be the average annual growth rate with respect to sales, with respect to stock prices, with respect to profit growth, etc. So in our example, you know how the CAGR is calculated? So the nth year, that is at the end of the third year, what is the maturity value? 1,850. That divided by initial year, what was our investment? Rupees 1,000. So 1,850 divided by rupees 1,000 to the power of 1 divided by the time period. So 1 divided by 3. This whole thing minus 1. It is equal to 23% per annum. This means our investment in this fund has given an average return of 23% every year over the last 3 years. And I want to add one point here. You know, in India, which of the company has a highest CAGR, or one of the companies which has the highest CAGR? It is Page Industries. If you know this jockey brand of innerwear sportswear, then Page Industries is the company that holds exclusive license to manufacture, distribute jockey brand products in India and some in other countries. Its CAGR over a period of 10 years is 30% per annum. It's pretty good. Now, the finishing scenario is not about compounding, but it's parallel concept. You recollect how we started our discussion? It's called discounting. We use this discounting to find out the value of a bond. What's a bond? It's a debt instrument which is issued by governments or corporates. You may want to refer to our episode 1 on the subject too. And what is bond valuation? It is the process of determining the fair price or value of a bond. Typically, this will involve calculating the present value of a bond's future interest payments, as well as the present value of its maturity amount. In finance, the value of something today is the present value of its discounted cash flows. So, how to price a bond? Let's take an imaginary bond. An investor wants to purchase a 3-year rupees 1000 face value bond having nominal rate of interest of 10%. At what price can the bond be purchased today if the bond matures at face value and investor wants rate of return of 14%? The present value of the bond we can calculate by applying the discounting formula. That is cash flows divided by 1 plus r to the power of t. So we do two steps. The first step, we discount the interest or the coupon payments. And the second step, we discount the final maturity value. And that's exactly what I've displayed here. Year 1, 2, 3, we have discounted the 100 rupees interest payments. Plus in the final, it matures at par, right? So that is the 1000 rupees what we put in the bond, we get back. So that divided by 1 plus r to the power of t. When we add all this, we get rupees 907 point something as the present value of the bond. In fact, it is the purchase price of the bond. If you want to purchase the bond today, you have to pay this. And you will also get the required rate of return of 14%. So this price will ensure that the bondholder receives an annual return of 14% over the life of the bond. Well, folks, compounding is the elemental concept for financial growth. So understanding this term deeper as and when we learn it, if I may say, leads to compounding of knowledge, and the resultant ability is being able to connect the dots and draw meaningful insights for better action. Hope you enjoyed this episode today. Do subscribe to our blog, thecacafe.in. Until the next episode of Putting News to Use, bye-bye.